Good afternoon and welcome to our February 1st, 2022, 2 o'clock consent agenda. Let the record reflect that all 3 commissioners are present and our executive management team. On today's agenda, we are striking item number 1B. 1B will be stricken from today's agenda. And then we are going to be getting a briefing on item number 2C. And I see we have Kathleen Torella and Justin Johnson from our Community Services Division who are going to be giving us that briefing. So I will let you start with that briefing.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to turn the time over to Justin Johnson to speak about this pilot, as he's the administrator over this program. And he will briefly outline what the pilot pertains to. It's a school-based pilot program for youth-aged individuals. And then he will specifically explain where the Reclaiming Futures contract fits into that pilot and explicitly what it's used for. And so hopefully this will provide the answers that you need with regards to this and a good understanding of what this pilot is in regard to. So Justin, go ahead.
Thank you, Kathleen and Commissioners, Chairman Cooney. The innovative project that we're looking to implement as part of the school-based ESPER pilot is an innovative way of beginning the process of addressing the mental health crisis that exists within youth throughout our region, addressing where the additional preventative necessary measures need to occur within a school-based setting, addressing, again, when do those mental health crises begin to first appear, and how can you address those at the earliest possible? Currently, it's a gap within the system that is not covered by insurance or Medicaid, and/or there's very little resources available. And so this innovative project looks to provide a nationally based, evidence-based practice screening to identify mental health and substance use issues and provide immediate follow-up to address those concerns in a preventative manner so that it doesn't go to a higher level, more intensive need. And this is, again, to follow some of the challenges due to the unprecedented emergency health protocols we have in place and the loss of a lot of other resources. So that's what the pilot project is looking at. It'll be based in just 3 schools for the time being. We're looking to expand. As part of that project, we want to make sure there's data and analytics that show the viability of the program and the benefit. And as part of that, this is kind of tailored after a program in King County, which implemented this program back in 2015. And they partnered with Seattle Children's Research, Ticket Health, which is a nationally based survey engagement company, technology company, and then Reclaiming Futures, which is part of Portland State, because of the license to provide the evidence-based practice screening tool that they developed as part of their ongoing work with the Robert Wood Foundation, the federal government, and various other universities and foundations. And so for the purposes of this program, the kind of comparison that we're making with King County is implementing this in a way that, again, addresses our needs, but at the same time, only using the license that Reclaiming Futures will be presenting and the technical assistance in using that license. That is the only program that we'll be using out of Reclaiming Futures, where it's necessary to ensure that the engagement methodologies that we're implementing follow a nationally based and recognized evidence-based practice. At the same time, they were chosen for their diverse and equitable engagement, which is why they've been selected by the federal government and the Robert Wood Foundation and various others to implement that. And so some of the concerns that have been put forward regarding the program, we're unsure about where those are coming from. I can tell you, because of their background, they have significant data published on their equitable engagement, diverse and wide-ranging recognition of populations that are underserved and underrepresented. So in short, the pilot will only be working with Reclaiming Futures for the purpose of the license and the technical assistance with that license.
Thank you. Do my other 2 commissioners have any questions regarding that? Commissioner Kearns?
I was just going to ask, Justin, you mentioned 4 schools that it will be piloted in. What are those 4 schools?
Yes, so there are 4 schools based in West Central I don't have the names that we just selected them.
Okay.
I can get you those 4 names after this. But there are 2 middle schools and a high school that were selected in West Central School District. The pilot was looking to expand to additional schools.
Okay, but so that they're all in Spokane Public Schools, none of the other surrounding districts?
That was necessary. That's correct. That was necessary to get the pilot going right away. The goal is to expand in schools beginning July 1. Once we put an RFP out, because of we're not contracted with them, we have to create an RFP process to get them on board.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner French?
Yeah, so Justin, the curriculum that's going to be taught, is that up to the school district to determine, or is that up to the recipient of this the grant, or who determines what the curriculum is and how that's presented?
Yeah, so there isn't a curriculum. Again, this is just a screening, but the school has full authority. So we're working with them to implement this project with their administration. So the school, as well as the youth and family, have complete autonomy and voluntary option in participating in the program itself. And the actual accompanying behavioral services that are provided are voluntary and are part of existing services already in place within the schools. We're just expanding them to include youth that would not necessarily meet the medical necessity criteria for Medicaid, which is a gap area currently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So this is trying to help with the behavioral health aspects. And I'm just going to clarify that it's voluntary, and it's kind of trying to meet that gap of the students that are Medicaid eligible versus the ones that are not Medicaid eligible.
So it encompasses any youth, Medicaid or non-Medicaid, regardless of insurance. The goal here was to be as broad and open to receiving as many youth as possible, and really to just identify what are the issues currently affecting them. Because currently we don't have a lot of good data reflecting that. And then how do we respond? And that's really what this is looking at, providing information to begin the process of looking at where we need the services.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming and taking the time to explain that to us. And then I will look to my fellow commissioners.
Thank
So,
you.
Madam Chair, I would move that we approve items 1, 2, and all the sub-items appearing thereunder, except item 1B, like in boy, in today's agenda.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and second to approve items 1, 2, and all sub-items, excluding item number 1B on today's agenda. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will get documents signed, and I'll get those off to everybody. Next on our agenda then is we have Jeff Morris, who's going to talk about ARP Planning update.
And Ron, Erica McCowan is also here if anybody has questions for her. The first thing we wanted to go over, Ron, and you have the link to pull. I was going to do the informal project request before the PowerPoint. So we have, when Cindy Wendell was here, you guys had created this online project request form for the community to submit projects, project ideas for CARES funds. We have gone through and rejiggered it a bit for ARP. And Richard Shaw in our IT department has been a huge help with that. You'll see at the top, we have it very clear this is not an application for ARP funding. It's part of our community outreach. The survey you have that's still ongoing is by category and really broad. This is if somebody has a specific project that they would like the commissioners to be aware of. And you'll see anything with an asterisk they have to fill out. So Ron, if you could just type a couple letters and like agency name, address, city, state, zip, wherever. If there's not an asterisk, you can skip those. You can just go down to address. We have to fill these in for you guys to be able to see. So you'll see it requires the entity type, Ron. That's a drop-down box. So that will give you an idea what sort of group it is, a nonprofit, a school district, a business. So just pick any of those. We're asking for dollar amounts. And then, Ron, if you hit the request type, lets you know if it's a current need or a future need or just a suggestion. There's some links that we have. The SLFRF is the state and local fiscal recovery funds. That's the name of the account within ARP that funds the CARES dollars. The ARP dollars at the county. Couple links there. And then these are the categories you're used to, Ron. If you just pick one of the category under eligible category, just go with infrastructure, then you'll see it'll bring up the subcategories in this box that you guys are used to seeing. And then some of this is also geared based on what we're required to collect as far as data goes. And one of that is where things are. So we have the zip code. They can choose kind of what zip code or countywide. And then just put something under the agency. Then you can hit next screen. And then these are just a few questions we're asking to gather basic information about any projects. The description of the project, the problem opportunity being addressed, and if you've had any funding history with Spokane County. And then hit next, there's one more. And this is more goals and outcomes, which is something ARP requires us to measure. The criteria for those outcomes, what population and will be served and will benefit. Again, that's an ARP requirement and additional information. So it's just a few questions. We wanted to ask enough questions that people just don't throw up ideas that they haven't given thought to. Watch a movie at night and throw in 30 ideas. It needs to have a little bit of meat and potatoes on the bone, so to speak, to an idea. But the thought process is like with CARES, it can bring some things possibly to the forefront that the commissioners aren't currently aware of, and feed into your concept and give people information what's out there in the community as we put together the ARP plans. So this would be a link that would come off of the survey page. People can either do the broad or if they have a specific. And then also, the way this is set up, we can dump it into an Excel sheet for a quick review of the information when you guys want to see it. So this is something we're proposing to go live with once the commissioners, if you guys agree with the idea and the concept, and give us the green light. So at this point, I'll pause for feedback.
Any questions or comments from Josh or Al?
Looks good to me. I like it. I think it's going to be a great tool.
Yeah, I'm fine as well.
I think it's going to be great, just to continue with that public engagement that we're required to do from the ARP dollars. So it's a good idea, and I think it's nice to have just a central place for us to say it all needs to go through there, so that way you can kind of sort through it.
And if you guys are on a phone call or somebody reaches out to you, it gives you a place to direct them to get the details that we need to look at to even know if it's a legal option. And then, of course, go through the process to see if it's something you guys are interested in funding. So based on that, we will go ahead and it'll probably be maybe next week since Jared's out of town this week, but we will get it up as soon as we can. Jessica might be able to help us with it in the So with that, if you want to pull up the PowerPoint, Ron, just want to go over three quick things just to reiterate in your mind. So we need to pass your plan, which is actually a county resolution. So that'll be high level broad points as far as what you're wanting to solve for. The quarterly reports, which you'll hear us talking about, that's the accounting. So that will be at the end of each calendar quarter. Those reports show what's been obligated in the plan and what has been spent to date. The annual report is the bigger one that will have the outcomes you're solving for, the evidence-based metrics that we're judging against. So the annual report's really the bigger workload. Right now, we're working on getting towards a resolution. These first couple slides are just recapping last week. While very few things qualify for direct funding within infrastructure, there are a few things that qualify if it's a single source provider. So right now we have the West Terrace Stormwater and the Whitworth Water District as two things we are, legal's helping us to make sure everything is as it should be. I know there's a couple other projects people have mentioned that we're still may add to this first one, but we have just shy of 7 million right now proposed in category 5, which is infrastructure. Revenue replacement, you guys heard this yesterday. They've instead of your first choice being your final answer, as far as going between the 10 million standard deduction or the formula, we have until the end of March to make that decision. So the fourth quarter report that was due yesterday went in saying we're going to take the formula because that's what everybody thinks we will at this point. We do expect the 2021 calculation to at least give a high level overview of where we think it will land in mid-March. So I think at that point, you guys can make that final decision, whether you want to stick with the formula or if for some reason things change, you want to go back. But we can make changes through this calendar quarter. Next slide is the administrative category. The 5 counties that I have looked at on the I-5 corridor, Clark and then Thurston up through Snohomish, they have ranged from about 1.5 to 3.5 million as far as what they are starting for the administrative overhead cost. The ARP allows up to 10%. I don't think we will get anywhere near 10 million plus on this. I hope not. We want the funds to go on the ground. But working with Erica, Tessa, and the budget office, we've pulled out the different positions that will be doing direct ARP work, assigning percentages to the best of our guess as far as what percentage of time each of those positions will put into ARP. And we're estimating over the first 3 years between grants, budget, legal, some things might pull in Tony Hall and procurement, Matt, who does the check writing, my time, that is looking at probably around 400,000 a year, give or take. So I kind of rounded down with a 3-year estimate of $1 million. Another thing I know the city is also looking at, the city of Spokane, our grant software that runs all the grants through the county is about 12 years old, which, as we all know, in computer time, that's several generations. So we might be looking, I had a conversation with Gary yesterday, we might be looking at getting some new grant software that will have more of what we need for ARP. It would also modernize for the county going forward for all of the grants the county does. We've talked about consultants. We're waiting to see what our needs actually are before we go down that road. But at this point, we're thinking between $1.5 million and $2 million to start the administrative bucket that would be drawn against mostly with salaries and possibly some software. We've not talked those numbers directly yet, so any feedback?
So Jeff, I'll go ahead and ask, so in that administrative expenses, the staff time, does that anticipate, because we talked about hiring a staff person for the length of the grant, for, helping with the RFP process, helping make sure, we're maximizing all of that. Does that include that person?
That includes that person at 100%. It also includes the administrative assistant in the grants office at 100%. Everybody else we plugged in at 40%. So okay. That would be Erica, Heather, myself, grants people. And of course that will fluctuate, but the calculation is those 2 positions at 100%, everyone else at 40%.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can move forward then. So last week we didn't get to categories 1, 2, and 3. Category 1, just throwing up those sub-bullet points for you again. And recall, so in these categories, we're not going to be doing, or it'd be very rare that we'd find something that can be directly allocated. So this would be where you allocate to solve an issue, and then we will draft an RFP to get the outcomes you desire, and people would have to apply. And in this one thing we could look at doing is in 1.3, our own county staff who's doing contract tracing. I know I've heard Ashley comment, she has a couple people are pretty much full-time. That is something that could be charged to ARP, would be a choice. And then we've also had some conversations around 1.7. Our public health has put in some capital ideas. We have legal looking at those. So those are 2 areas right now that we will bring some more information to you and choices and ideas. Is there anything else right now for this first plan? Reminding you have multiple opportunities to amend and add to your plan. Is there anything else in this category right now you would like us to be looking at?
I think for me, Jeff, 1.10, I'm just seeing we know that we have an issue with mental health, that there's not enough, I don't know what that is, but I think that's an area that, we're hearing it from so many different perspectives, that is, what would be allowable in that arena for us. So, So it's just something I just want to keep on the radar to say, what is there? And I know in Washington State University, they've got, a proposal that they want to talk to us about. I haven't seen it yet. But,
I think that's next week. We're meeting with them.
Okay. So I, again, I don't know what it is, but, it's just something that I know that's a concern in the community. So, Commissioner French?
Yeah, Jeff, do we have any idea or any early indications as to what the state plans on spending their allocation of funds on yet?
Not yet.
I'm wondering.
I'm making an assumption we'll get more towards the end of the legislative session, because I could see the executive branch looking at that funding maybe to do stuff that the legislature didn't do. So that's my assumption and the reasoning behind it. But at this point, I expect that to become more evident in the spring.
Well, and getting to Commissioner Cooney's issue with regard to mental health services, this would be a great opportunity for the state to increase their contribution with regard to mental health and satisfy some of their obligations with True Blood and do it with other people's money instead of their own. And so it'd be interesting to see what they're going to do, and maybe there's a role that we can play in support of, as opposed to trying to provide some leadership to that effort. So just an observation.
And that's one thing, one of the one position we're hiring with ARP is someone to have more time to really follow that closely, to really watch what the state's doing, what funding opportunities are coming from the state, and kind of fill in, because that can be time consuming trying to track all of that from the state and the feds. So I have that one. Anything else on category 1 before we go to category 2? And again, we will revisit this many times over the next couple of years. So this is just a first pass. So let's hit the next slide, Ron, which is the negative economic impact. There's been discussions around 2.2 for that assistance, but with the additional funds that have come in through TRAP and ERA, it seems like people are feeling that's fairly well covered right now through other funds. I've 2.10. There's been some conversation around nonprofits, youth education, underserved populations. Those are some areas that we'll be bringing more information back to you. 2.7, the job training, specifically around outcomes around manufacturing and healthcare, two of our industries here in the area. There's been a little talk about online remote work, so that'd be 2.7. 2.1 under food programs, there's been some interest in a refrigeration system, just to keep the produce that our food banks are using in better shape. And then there's been a little bit of discussion around some very targeted aid to the small businesses, 2.9. So those are the categories right now that we're looking deeper in. Is there anything additional from these? Shall we go to the next slide then? Which is our services to disproportionately impacted communities. As you can see, there's kind of four main categories: education, healthy childhood environments, housing support, and social determinants of health. There's certainly been discussion around a down payment assistance program. So we're looking into that, particularly around revolving fund, talking with Dale and Mark McLean's shop, where we're trying to figure out exactly how revolving funds work in ARP. There's some definite language around that. So I'll be bringing that back. Some programming around unhoused people, particularly the 18 to 25-year-old kind of young adult youth. We have that one on our radar. Is there anything else you guys would like us to kind of bring to the front as we work towards this first plan?
Commissioner French.
So with regard to the revolving loan fund, if we can't fit that into one of these categories, could we do that out of the county's portion of the administrative cost?
I believe you could do it out of the revenue replacement portion that would go to the general fund. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Okay, thank you.
Any other here? And again, we will revisit these again. So next slide is just kind of a quick, wanted to put up category 4, but I've not had much by way of input from you guys when I've spoken with you individually. So I just wanted it up there if there's anything more. And then category 5 is the broadband water sewer that we recapped at the beginning of this, and we had a fairly robust discussion last week about that. So if you guys want to flag anything for category 4, I think I've got my marching orders on category 5 to start framing stuff and bringing it back for you at a future meeting.
I think on category 5, Jeff and I are going to be going down to the small towns in South Spokane County and, kind of seeing what their needs are. I know we've got some discussions on broadband down there. Seeing how we can best go after the state broadband money, and then if we can help with just the match is one of the things we're looking at and talking to them about. So we'll see. There's discussions coming, towards, I think that's the 17th of February. So we'll see what comes out of those discussions. Commissioner French?
Yeah, so with regard to the broadband, I did have the opportunity last week to spend some time with Bob Lincoln. Bob was the individual that led the county's effort in putting together the 911 tower infrastructure program that supports all of our arrays for communication. And there is an opportunity, trying to ferret it out a little bit more with a couple suppliers and stuff, but there is an opportunity that we might be able to use our existing towers for the installation of 5 gig broadband arrays. And so that would allow us to basically provide broadband for the entire county, entire unincorporated area of Spokane County. So as we continue to ferret out the challenges with that, I'll keep you abreast of that opportunity as well.
The state did just award either 13 or 14 mostly rural counties some broadband dollars. And so the state is, that's one thing we do know the state is focused on, and some of it's required by the federal pass-through. So we are keeping a close eye on additional broadband dollars through the state and Fed that could complement what you guys have here with the Spokane County dollars. And that gives me the feedback I need to move forward for next week. Erica, did you have anything to add to this?
Just a quick update on the contractor and the software and that kind of stuff. We've been meeting with IT to go over some of the parameters of building an application portal. If we do that internally or externally, we've met with a contractor that has an application portal up and running already and can build it out for entities and has done that. One, I believe is Norfolk, Virginia, has the same amount of money they're using this contractor to do their application portal, and most of these categories are all the same as far as how they're initially built, but they all have differing levels of performance metrics that have to be integrated into the application and requirements. And they've built that out already for every single category. So basically, we have a contractor that we could just plug and play with as far as having an application system up and running. But we also have the eligibility contractor category that if we have questions on projects that we would probably need to ask, other sources for that information. And also, as part of the grant software, some of these grant software entities have an application portal built into them, but they don't have all the specifics customized already. And we met with one today that basically said that if we had an application software from a different company, that we could build it out as far as the back end after we award it and still use the grant software to manage the grants. And we're also looking at the integration of PeopleSoft into the grant software. But we also know that we have, the ERP system project going in the background. So we're trying to be delicate with all of these additional projects that we have going on and make sure that we're not overrunning, certain things and not overlapping, and trying to build the best delivery system possible in order for us to still maintain, all of our financials and all of our performance indicators and manage all of that. So we're I think we've met with 2 vendors now. We have another one to come up with, and IT is basically going to look at that as a big project and make a recommendation whether they can build something or whether we should scope it out further, what the scope of work would look like into a grant software or application software, however we go forward with that.
Thanks. And that's some of the background that will go into that administrative category bucket as far as funding of that. So that's all I have for this week. We will start digging deeper into these bucket areas and bring it back around, and we'll start, hopefully within the next week or two, have a rough resolution we can shop to you guys to get that first plan passed. Those are just the 7 categories again. So that's the end, unless there's any other questions for me. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we have an executive session. I'm going to scheduled for 2:30 or 2:35 or 2:36. I guess I'm going to just check if there's any miscellaneous items that we need that anyone has after this. Scott.
Thanks, Commissioner Cooney. Erica wanted to give a brief update to the board regarding some conversations she's been having with UGM regarding isolation quarantine. So I'm going to let her give you an update on that.
Great, thank you, Erica. I'll let you go, and then I'm going to just check with Ron. Is Mike Volts or Mike Baumgartner waiting?
He's on the other Zoom.
Oh, they're in the other Zoom. No. Okay. Okay, I guess so. They're in the executive session Zoom already. Representative Volts or Deputy Treasurer Mike Volts and Mike Baumgartner, the Treasurer. So should we just go into executive session and come back? And
well, let's just ask Erica, how long is your briefing?
Not very long, 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll do that. Can you let them know then that we'll be there in 5 minutes? Okay, go ahead, Erica.
So we had in September through about November, we had the Union Gospel Mission basically with our isolation facility housing some people. And the health district negotiated the contract, and we basically drew up the FEMA contract and sent it out to them to have them sign it. And we followed up several times to have them sign the contract, and finally got a hold of them about the end of December and asked, you know, if we don't have a signed contract, we're going to need to basically book a liability to pay you at some point. And they finally contacted us and said that they did not wish to bill the county for their services. But as an entity, we still have the liability basically going to sit on our books for 3 to 5 years if we don't get something in writing from them saying, basically, you know, we're not going to bill you, that kind of stuff. So I had sent a follow-up email to Phil Altmeyer, basically stating what he had told me, and just to reply and say, you know, yeah, we don't want to bill you, but we never received anything back. So I had legal draft up a letter to send certified mail to them as far as the business related there. But just wanted to go over that with you guys to make sure that that's what, you know, you guys wanted to do, or if you just wanted to book the liability and leave it on the books for 3 to 5 years. That we're talking about $20,000-ish that we would owe them. And it's technically under FEMA dollars right now. But if they decided to bill us in 3 years, we probably couldn't recoup that money from FEMA. And it's just, you know, one of those things that we just like to clean up for year end and, you know, square away. But in talking about this, found out that the Union Gospel Missions, that they don't take federal dollars. And apparently that was the reason that they did not sign that contract. I wasn't aware of that until just about a month ago. And so I don't know if sending a letter to them regarding that is what you guys want or how you want me to handle that. So
Scott, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, just it would be the recommendation of the team to send a letter. That way it gives some clarity on direction that the UGM wants to go. So Eric has worked with Mark's team to draft that up, and it basically gives 3 options. It's sign the contract so we can submit for reimbursement, get you reimbursed, or basically acknowledge that you want to provide this as a gift free of charge to the county, and there's no expectation of reimbursement on it. So it just helps kind of provide some clarity in terms of the direction we're going to go.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, I see that Mark had gotten off turned on his video as well. So I see you're shaking your head the same. You prefer to send the letter.
We do think that's the wise way to go, Commissioner. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I would agree, just from a audit standpoint, it's going to be much cleaner to have something in writing. Otherwise, they're going to look at it as a liability, unpaid liability. And so, you know, I think if you can present it in a manner that's just letting them say, hey, you know, we're willing to pay you but we have to have you sign the contract, or you just need to let us know that you're foregoing that, you know, potential revenue as a donation to the county, and, you know, thank them very much for helping when we needed their help on an isolation and quarantine facility, because they were very instrumental during that month to help us take care of that situation. So
yeah, my only concern was that I didn't want to put, if Phil had accepted this money or accepted the contract, and I didn't know if he didn't brief the board or what was going on, and he wasn't supposed to contract that out if that was going to put him kind of in a bind. That was kind of my only concern with any of this. But it is what it is.
And it's really just a documentation, you know, situation. So I don't see it as being an issue.
Okay. Sounds good. That was all I had.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous items? Seeing none. Okay, then. Does someone know how long we anticipate being in executive session?
Thank you, Commissioner. We anticipate 15 minutes.
15. Okay.
And we would do anticipate action at the end of this, so we would be coming back.
Oh, we will be coming back. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry, then we could have done that differently. I apologize. Okay, so we will be going into executive session for 15 minutes. It is 2:43, so I'm going to say it's going to be 2:45 by the time we make the switch and get into executive session. So, and we'll be in for 15 minutes, so we will be out at 3 o'clock and anticipate to come back and take action. Thank you. We are back from our executive session. We did extend for 15 minutes. And in our executive session, just so that I can state for the record, it was all three commissioners, our executive management team, Mark McLean, our civil attorney, Deputy Treasurer Mike Volz, and civil attorney Casey Evans. I think that has everybody. So that was who was all in our executive session. We are coming out now and returning to open session, and I'm looking to my fellow commissioners for action. So I may be looking to Mr. Casey Evans for action.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The proposed motion, it reads as follows. That I move the board to authorize the prosecutor's office to enter on behalf of the board a partial judgment and order declaring the tax sale of certain real property, assessor parcel number 15261.1424, by the Spokane County Treasurer as void, and nullifying the recording of the treasurer's deed associated with this sale, pursuant to a stipulated agreement in Holloway v. Spokane County et al., case number 21-01412-FPC13.
So move.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, or is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. We appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to just do one last call for any other miscellaneous items that need to be brought forward. Seeing none, then we will conclude today's meeting. It is 3:18 on Tuesday, February 1 of 2022. We've concluded the meeting. Thank you all very much. Oh,
you want to say it was an executive session?
I thought I did.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. So thank you all very much. Have a great day.